Michael Foster wiped applesauce from the corner of his daughter's mouth with one hand while balancing a juice box in the other, when he heard the sound of quiet sobbing from the far end of the park bench. He turned his head. A woman in a navy coat sat at the edge of the bench, her shoulders trembling, her face turned away behind oversized sunglasses. Her breathing was uneven. She looked like she was trying her best not to fall apart in public and failing. Michael glanced at his daughter, Bella, who was happily smashing crackers into her tiny fists. Then he looked back at the woman. "You okay?" he asked gently. She didn't look up. "Sorry. I'll go." "You don't have to. Stay. It's a public bench," he said, shifting over to give her more space even though she wasn't anywhere near him. "Besides, you look like you could use a quiet place to sit." Her head slowly turned toward his voice. The sunglasses didn't hide the redness in her eyes or the tear tracks on her cheeks. She looked exhausted. Beautiful, too, in a sharp, elegant way that made her seem out of place next to the graffitied playground and chipped paint benches. "Thanks," she said softly, voice hoarse. He nodded. "Want some crackers? They're very squished," he offered with a weak grin, holding out one of Bella's crumbled snacks. That got the faintest laugh out of her. "No, but thank you." Bella, noticing the attention, waved a cracker-covered hand. "Hi!" The woman's lips twitched. "Hi," she said back gently. Michael watched her as she tucked her hair behind her ear and took a deep breath, as if the simple act of being spoken to like a normal person had grounded her. "I'm Michael," he said, shifting Bella to his lap. "And this is Bella. She's 2. She likes ducks, crackers, and throwing both at people." The woman let out a quiet laugh, and it sounded real this time. "Nice to meet you both. I'm Noelle." Michael waited, but she didn't offer a last name. That was fine. He didn't press. They sat in silence for a few minutes, only the sounds of kids screaming and birds squawking nearby. Bella wriggled to get down and toddled toward the sandbox, and Michael stood. "Do you want some coffee?" he asked. "There's a cart right over there. I can bring you one." She looked surprised. "You don't even know me. You don't look like someone who wants to be alone right now," he said simply. "And I'm not trying to hit on you. I just know what a bad day feels like." Noelle's eyes softened. "Black. No sugar." By the time Michael came back with 2 coffees and a juice box, Noelle was sitting straighter, brushing sand off her skirt from where Bella had apparently gifted her a handful of the playground. "Did she throw it at you?" he asked, handing her the cup. "No," Noelle said, a little smile playing on her lips. "She gave it to me like it was a diamond." Michael laughed. "That's her love language. Dirt." They sat again, sipping coffee, watching Bella toddle around. Noelle finally spoke. "I got news today that someone I trusted betrayed me. Someone I built something with. And now I have to figure out if I want to keep standing or just let everything fall." Michael didn't ask for details. "I know what that's like," he said. "My ex walked out when Bella was 6 months old. I used to own a construction company. Had a crew contracts lined up. I lost 2 jobs back to back taking care of Bella after she left. Then the bills piled up. Now I work part-time at the hardware store and take side gigs where I can." He shrugged. "But Bella smiles, and I remind myself I still have the only thing that matters." Noelle looked at him then, really looked. "You're a good dad." Michael gave a tired smile. "I try." They fell into a rhythm. They talked. About nothing and everything. About how hard parenting was. About how lonely success could be. Noelle never said what she did, but Michael picked up on little things: her watch, the way she spoke like she was used to being listened to, the way her phone buzzed constantly in her purse, ignored. She stayed for almost 2 hours before finally standing. "Thank you for today," she said, brushing her coat off. "I didn't expect to. Feel better." "You're welcome anytime," Michael said. "We're here most afternoons. Unless I pick up a job." She nodded. Maybe I'll see you again. As she walked away, Michael watched her go, not realizing that the woman who just sat on a cracked park bench crying was Noelle Mason, CEO of Mason Tech Holdings, one of the most powerful women in the city. And she wasn't just walking away lighter. She was walking away curious. The next day, she came back. This time, she brought Bella a new bucket and shovel. This is too much, Michael said, looking at the shiny plastic set that clearly wasn't from the dollar store. It was $5. Noelle lied easily, sitting beside him. I owed her for the sand diamond. Michael chuckled. Well, she accepts bribes. They talked again. This time, longer. She asked about his favorite movies. He asked about her childhood. They argued over pizza toppings and laughed about Bella's stubborn refusal to share crackers with anyone but Noelle. By the end of the week, Noelle had been to the park 4 times. And on the 5th day, she brought dinner. I figured you probably haven't had a hot meal that didn't come out of a microwave in a while, she said, holding up a brown paper bag. Michael stared at her, touched. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. Noelle hesitated. Because you were kind to me when I had nothing to give. No expectations. No judgment. Just kindness. Michael swallowed. I didn't expect anything. I know. That's why it meant something. They sat together on the grass while Bella played. Michael tried to keep his eyes on his daughter, but they kept drifting back to Noelle. The way her smile reached her eyes now. The way she laughed, open and real. The way she seemed to look at him like he was more than just a man with a diaper bag and calluses on his hands. Do you ever want more? She asked suddenly. Than this, I mean. Michael looked down at his daughter, then back at her. Yeah, he admitted. Sometimes. But I've learned not to expect it anymore. Noelle was quiet, then she reached over and took his hand. I think I'd like to see what more looks like. With you. Michael stared at her. Why me? Because you're the first man I've met in years who made me feel safe. Who didn't look at me like I was a prize or a problem. Who made me laugh when I wanted to scream. Michael's heart thudded in his chest. I don't know what I can give you, he said honestly. I don't have much. I don't want what you have, Noelle said softly. I want who you are. And just like that, something shifted. Michael leaned in, slow, uncertain, until Noelle met him halfway. Their lips met, and it wasn't fireworks or explosions. It was something deeper. A breath after drowning. A quiet promise. Bella clapped her hands, giggling at nothing. And for the first time in years, Michael felt like maybe. Just maybe. He wasn't going to be alone anymore. The first time Michael saw Noelle outside the park, she was stepping out of a sleek black car in front of the corner bakery. He paused mid-step, half balancing Bella on his hip, watching as a man in a tailored suit opened an umbrella over her head even though the sky was perfectly clear. Noelle's hair was swept into a loose twist, and she wore a crisp white blouse tucked into slate-gray trousers that looked like they belonged in a magazine ad. She turned, thanked the man without smiling, and walked straight into the bakery. Michael blinked, his breath catching for a reason he didn't quite understand, then adjusted Bella and pushed through the door behind her. Inside, the place smelled like cinnamon and yeast. There were only a few people in line. Noelle stood near the counter, scanning the display case. She hadn't noticed him. He cleared his throat. She turned, startled, and then her face lit up, not a polite smile, not the distant warmth she'd had when talking to strangers in the park, but something that reached all the way to her eyes. I didn't expect to see you here, she said, voice lower than usual, like she was trying not to give too much away. Michael grinned. We come here every Thursday. I bribe Bella with blueberry muffins so she doesn't scream through the hardware store. Noelle's gaze flicked to Bella, who was now chewing on her sleeve and pointing at the display case like it was treasure. She has excellent taste. Like her mother, Michael said automatically, then froze. Sorry. That came out wrong. No, it didn't. Noelle said, stepping closer. It came out honest. They stood like that for a moment, just looking at each other, the rest of the bakery fading into background noise until Bella let out an impatient whine that broke the spell. Michael shifted her on his hip. We should get her muffin before she eats her sweater. Noelle hesitated. Would you want to sit? I have 10 minutes before I have to be somewhere. Michael nodded. Yeah. Sure. She paid for both their orders before he could protest, and they settled into a booth near the window. Bella munched happily between them, her chubby fists busy with crumbs. Noelle stirred her coffee slowly. That man outside. He's my driver. I didn't want you to think I was pretending to be something I'm not. Michael raised an eyebrow. You think I didn't notice the $500 watch? Her eyes widened. He laughed. I used to build luxury homes. I know designer stuff when I see it. So you knew, she said. I figured you had money. Didn't know how much. Didn't really care. Noelle looked down at her cup. Most people do. Care, I mean. Well, I'm not most people, he said. And besides, you never acted like it mattered. She tilted her head. Is that why you never asked what I did? Pretty much. I figured if you wanted me to know, you'd tell me. Noelle leaned back, studying him. I run a tech company. Mason Tech Holdings. My father started it. I took over 4 years ago. Michael exhaled slowly. That's big. It's exhausting, she said. But it's mine. I respect that, he said. You built something out of it. She hesitated. I almost lost it this month. My CFO, he was siphoning funds. Millions. I found out 2 weeks ago. Michael's brow furrowed. That's... damn. I'm sorry. I froze his access. Legal's on it now. But the board's watching me like I'm about to shatter. I haven't told anyone outside the company. Why me? He asked. Because you don't want anything from me, she said simply. And right now, that feels like the only solid thing I have. Michael didn't know what to say to that, so he reached out and took her hand. She let him. Bella squished a muffin into her hair and cackled. Noelle laughed, full and unguarded. She's chaos in a tutu. She is, Michael said. She also refuses to wear pants. I admire her commitment. They parted outside the bakery. Her driver opened the door, and she hesitated before getting in. I want to see you again, she said, stepping into his space just slightly. Not in the park. Not by accident. I want it to be on purpose. Michael looked down at Bella, who was now asleep against his chest, then back at Noelle. Yeah. Me too. She slipped a folded card into his hand. I'm hosting a charity event on Saturday. It's formal. Come. Michael opened the card and stared at the gold embossed lettering. His name was printed on it like he belonged there. I don't have a suit, he said. I'll take care of it, Noelle replied. Just show up. She got into the car, and it pulled away before he could ask what that meant. The next morning, a box arrived at his apartment. Inside was a tailored charcoal suit, a white shirt, and a pair of polished black shoes that looked like they cost more than his rent. There was no note. Just a card tucked into the breast pocket. Saturday. 7 o'clock. I'll be waiting. Noelle. Michael stared at the box for a long time. Then, without a word, he walked to his bedroom and hung the suit on the back of the door. Saturday came faster than expected. He arranged for his neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, to watch Bella. She adored the toddler, and had raised 5 kids of her own, then showered, shaved, and stared at himself in the mirror for a solid 10 minutes before leaving. The car waiting outside his building was the same one he'd seen at the bakery. This feels like a trap, he muttered as he slid into the back seat. The driver gave a polite nod. Ms. Mason instructed me to deliver you directly to the venue. Michael nodded, suddenly nervous. The ride was smooth and silent. When they pulled up to the event hall, There were photographers outside, lights flashing, people arriving in glittering gowns and black tuxedos. Michael froze. This is a mistake. But before he could open the door, Noelle stepped out of the entrance. She was wearing a midnight blue gown that caught the light like water, her hair pinned back with silver combs. She looked like a queen. And yet, the second she saw him, her face broke into the kind of smile that made his chest ache. She walked straight to the car and opened the door herself. "You came," she said softly. "I almost didn't," he admitted, stepping out. She looked him over, her gaze lingering. "You clean up well. I feel like an imposter." "You're not," she said. "You're exactly where I want you." And then, in the middle of the flashing cameras and murmuring crowd, she reached out and took his hand. No hiding. No hesitation. Michael squeezed her fingers. And together they walked into the lion's den. Michael had never been inside the St. Regis Conservatory before, let alone through its gilded ballroom doors. The ceiling stretched high above, arched and paneled in glass, revealing a night sky dotted with stars. Every surface gleamed crystal chandeliers, polished marble, towering floral arrangements that looked more like botanical sculptures than centerpieces. He kept his shoulders squared as he walked beside Noelle, conscious of every stare that followed them. But if she noticed the glances, the subtle double takes, the murmurs, she didn't show it. Her hand stayed in his, firm and steady. A suited man with sharp eyes approached, dipping his head toward Noelle. "Miss Mason, they're ready for your introduction." She nodded, then turned to Michael. "I'll be 10 minutes. There's a bar over there, order anything you want. Put it on my name." "I'll be fine," he said. "Go do your thing." She hesitated, her fingers brushing his briefly before she turned away and strode toward the stage at the far end of the ballroom. Michael exhaled and made his way to the bar. He avoided the clusters of executives and foundation chairs, their conversations buzzing with terms he hadn't heard since the one business class he took in his early 20s. He ordered a ginger ale and leaned against the edge of the bar, watching Noelle. She stood on stage now, her voice amplified and clear. Confident. Measured. She spoke about innovation in education systems, about a new program launching in underfunded schools. She mentioned partnerships and grants, using words like impact and sustainability, with the kind of passion that made people lean in. He couldn't take his eyes off her. "Not who you expected, is she?" The voice came from his left. A man somewhere in his early 40s, with a gold tie pin and a face built for boardrooms, had taken the seat beside him. His tone wasn't hostile, just curious. Michael kept his expression neutral. "She's impressive. She's relentless," the man replied. "Built this entire initiative in under 6 months. Most of the board thought it was a vanity project until she brought in 3 major investors." Michael didn't respond. The man sipped his drink. "I'm guessing you're not from this world." "You guessed right." He extended a hand. "Dorian Latimer, CFO of Halstead Ventures. We've worked with Mason Tech for years." "You?" Michael shook his hand. "Michael Foster." "And what do you do, Mr. Foster?" "I raise my daughter. Take renovation jobs when they come." Dorian studied him, then nodded slowly. "She's never brought anyone to one of these." "Not once." Michael didn't know what to say to that. "She's not just impressive in meetings," Dorian went on. "She's a force outside of them, too. But she doesn't let many people close. So whatever this is." He motioned loosely toward the stage, where Noelle had just finished speaking. "It matters." Before Michael could reply, Noelle descended the steps and crossed the room, her eyes locked on his. Dorian raised his glass in her direction. "Good luck," he murmured, then disappeared into the crowd. "You survived?" Noelle asked, sliding into the seat beside Michael. "Barely. One of your acquaintances thought I was the valet." She bit back a laugh. "Sorry. I should have warned you." "I'm glad you didn't," he said. "I would have run." She tilted her head. You're not running now. He looked around. Still deciding. She rested her hand on his. Come with me. They slipped away from the ballroom, down a hall lined with portraits of past benefactors. Noelle led him to a side terrace, quiet and lit by soft, golden sconces. The city stretched out below them, glittering. This place is something else, he said. I used to hate it, she admitted. These events. The pretense. The way people look at each other like they're scanning barcodes instead of faces. Michael leaned against the balustrade. So why do it? Because the only way to change the rules is from within. He glanced at her, and for a moment, he didn't see the CEO or the polished speeches. He saw the woman from the park bench, holding herself together with sheer will. You're different out here, he said. How so? Softer. Quieter. Less like you're about to conquer a nation. She laughed, then looked out at the skyline. I grew up on the edges of this city. My father worked his way up through concrete and steel. He built Mason Tech from nothing, but he never let us forget where we came from. I used to sit on rooftops like this and dream about being up there. She pointed toward the tallest tower in the distance. Now I'm there. And sometimes I miss the dreaming more than the having. Michael understood that in a way he couldn't put into words. You ever think about walking away from all of it? He asked. Not until lately, she said. Not until I met you. Silence stretched between them, charged and soft. I don't want to be something you use to escape, he said quietly. I'm not your break from reality. You're not, she said. You're the first real thing I've had in a very long time. He turned to her, their faces inches apart. Then prove it. Noelle stepped closer, her fingers brushing the back of his neck as she leaned in and kissed him deeply, deliberately, without the hesitance of their first kiss. When they pulled apart, her breath was unsteady. Come home with me. Michael paused. Bella's with Mrs. Delaney. I told her I'd be back by midnight. Then let's not waste a second. They left through a side exit, avoiding the crowd. Her car was waiting, and this time, Michael didn't hesitate as he slid in beside her. Her penthouse was nothing like what he expected. Warm lighting, worn books stacked beside sleek furniture, a baby grand piano covered in sheet music and a crooked photo of her family in mismatched frames. That was my dad's, she said, nodding toward the piano. He played badly. Loudly. Every Sunday morning. Michael wandered toward the window, the city beyond more distant than he'd ever seen it. You don't bring people here, do you? No. He turned. So why me? Noelle crossed the room and stood in front of him. Because you don't look at me like I'm about to break. Or like I owe you something. I don't want anything from you, he said. I know, she whispered. That's why I want to give you everything. She kissed him again, slower this time, her hands fisting the front of his suit jacket. He lifted her gently, carrying her toward the couch, and the world narrowed to the two of them. No boardrooms, no broken contracts, no half-eaten crackers or hollow charity speeches. Just real breath, real skin, real need. Hours later, he lay awake beside her, the city lights casting soft shadows across the room. Noelle was asleep, her hand resting against his chest like she belonged there. And for the first time in years, Michael didn't feel like he was surviving. He felt like he was living. Michael stepped into the apartment with Bella in his arms, her hair still damp from the bath at Mrs. Delaney's. She was humming softly, half asleep against his shoulder. He moved quietly, settling her into her crib before pulling her favorite blanket over her. She clutched the stuffed penguin Noelle had given her a week ago, the one she now refused to sleep without. He stood beside the crib for a moment longer than usual. Something inside him had shifted. Noelle hadn't called since he left her penthouse 3 days ago, and he hadn't reached out either. Not because he didn't want to, he did. But something about the way she looked at him that morning, the tenderness in her voice when she said goodbye, made him hesitate. It wasn't doubt. It was the weight of it all. A knock at the door startled him. He glanced at the clock. It was nearly 9. He opened it to find Noelle standing there, dressed in jeans and a faded sweatshirt. Her hair was pulled into a low braid, and there was no driver behind her this time. She looked different. Not less herself, just more of the self he hadn't seen in public. "I walked," she said before he could speak. "It's not far. And I needed the air." Michael stepped aside, letting her in. She moved quietly into the living room, glancing around like she was seeing it for the first time, even though she'd been there once before. That visit had been brief, a drop-off for Bella's toy when they'd left it behind at the park. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me," she said finally, her eyes flicking to the baby monitor on the shelf. "I wasn't sure if you'd show up," he replied. "But I'm glad you did." She nodded, then walked to the couch and Saturday. "I had a board meeting this morning. They offered me a sabbatical." Michael raised an eyebrow. "That sounds unexpected. They said it was a show of support. But it's not. It's their way of putting me on a shelf until things settle." "Are you going to take it?" "I did," she said. 90 days. Effective immediately. He sat beside her, careful to leave enough space for her to decide what came next. "I thought it would feel like a punishment," she continued, "but honestly, it feels like a chance to breathe." Michael studied her. "So what are you going to do with all that air?" She looked at him, her voice softer now. "I want to find out what it's like to live without a calendar dictating every hour. I want to learn how to make pancakes that don't come from a hotel buffet. I want to take walks without checking my email. I want—" She stopped. "What?" he asked. "I want to know what it would be like to build something that doesn't depend on quarterly reports or investor calls. Something real." Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You're saying a lot without saying it." "I know," she admitted. "I've spent years speaking in code, press releases, boardroom language. It's hard to unlearn." "Try," he said. She turned fully toward him. "I want to be here. Not just tonight. I want to be part of your life. Yours and Bella's. I know it won't be simple, and I know I can't just parachute in and expect it to fit, but I'm willing to learn. I want to." Michael didn't speak right away. He stood and walked over to the window, pulling back the curtains slightly. The city lights shimmered in the distance, duller from this side of town but still present. "You know what scares me?" he said, his voice low. "I've spent so long just getting by. Every time things got good, they fell apart. When my ex left, I stopped believing good things could stay. And then you showed up." She stood too, crossing the room slowly. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "Not unless you asked me to." He turned to face her. "I don't want perfect. I don't need grand. I just want something that lasts." "Then let's build it," she said. "Together." He reached for her hand, and she laced her fingers through his. "What does that look like?" he asked. She smiled, something warm and certain in it. "You tell me." He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders finally releasing. "For starters, pancakes. Not from a box. And someone to help me wrangle a toddler who thinks bedtime is optional." "I can do that," she said. "I might burn the pancakes, though. I'll take my chances." She leaned in, and this kiss felt different than the others. It wasn't about attraction or relief or even comfort. It was about choosing. When they pulled apart, she glanced toward the hallway. "Is she asleep?" "Out cold," he said. "Good," she whispered. "Because I brought something." She walked back to the door and pulled in a canvas tote. From it, she retrieved a folded wooden easel, several small jars of paint, and 3 blank canvases. Michael blinked. "What's all that?" "I took a painting class in college. I was terrible at it. But it made me happy. I thought maybe Bella would like it." "You brought art supplies for a toddler?" "I brought art supplies for all of us," she corrected. "We can keep the mess outside. I checked your building, there's a rooftop." He stared at her for a long moment, then laughed. "You're unbelievable." "No," she said, stepping back into his space. "I'm in love." The words hung there, suspended between them. Michael's throat tightened. "Say that again." "I'm in love with you," she said, eyes unwavering. "And with her. And with the way you make space for people without asking anything in return." He pulled her into his arms and held her tightly. "I love you too. I just didn't know how to say it yet." "You just did," she whispered. The next morning, Bella woke to the scent of eggs and something vaguely resembling pancakes. Michael stood at the stove, flipping a stubborn one that refused to brown evenly. Noelle sat at the table, hair pulled up, sleeves rolled, holding a paintbrush in one hand and a smear of red across her cheek. Bella waddled over, eyes wide. "You want to paint?" Noelle asked, holding up a second brush. Bella nodded solemnly and took it. Their first painting was a mess of swirls and smudges. It was perfect. That afternoon they hung it in the hallway. Michael looked at it and smiled. "It's ours." Noelle reached for his hand. "The first of many." They stood like that for a long time, the three of them no longer fragments, no longer strangers passing through each other's lives. A family, real and whole, building something neither of them had dared to dream of until now. The wind caught Noelle's hair as she stood at the edge of the community garden, her boots sinking slightly into the soft spring soil. She bent down, brushing her fingers over the first green shoots pushing through the earth. Bella was nearby, crouched with a trowel almost as big as her forearm, tongue sticking out in concentration as she dug. Michael stood a few feet away, arms crossed, watching the two of them with a look that didn't belong to a man still waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was the look of someone who finally believed the ground beneath them wasn't about to give way. "I think this one's a tomato," Noelle said, glancing over her shoulder. Bella looked up. "Matto!" she shouted, then promptly fell backward in the dirt. Michael walked over, lifting her up with a practiced motion and brushing soil off her overalls. "You can't eat it yet, kiddo. It still needs time." Bella pouted. Noelle leaned in and whispered something that made her giggle, then handed her a small watering can shaped like a frog. "She's going to flood that poor plant," Michael said, amused. "Maybe," Noelle replied. "But it'll be hydrated." They stood side by side, watching Bella water everything in sight, including her own shoes. Michael glanced sideways. "You could have picked anywhere for this little project. Rooftop gardens, private courtyards. Why here?" Noelle dug her fingers into the soil again. "Because this place needed it. And I needed to do something with my hands. Something that didn't involve quarterly projections or staring at a screen." He nodded, then reached into the canvas tote at his feet and pulled out a thermos. "I brought the good stuff. Cinnamon coffee. Mrs. Delaney's recipe." She took the cup he poured and sipped. "You've been holding out on me. I had to make sure you weren't just here for the coffee." She tilted her head. "And now?" "Now I know you're here for the dirt," he said dryly. She laughed, then sobered slightly. "They offered me my position back. Full reinstatement. Bigger title. Full control." Michael didn't answer immediately. He watched her, waiting. "I said no," she continued. "I realized I don't want to go back. Not the way it was. I've already started something new. A foundation. Focused on education, sustainability. The things we talked about. Things that matter. That's where your heart is," he said. She looked down at her hands. "It never really was in boardrooms. That was survival. This is the first time I'm choosing." Michael touched her wrist gently. "I'm proud of you." She turned to him, eyes soft. "I want us to build this life together. Not just the garden. Everything. I want Bella to grow up knowing she was raised with love, not just stability." "You think I don't?" he asked, teasing. "I think she's lucky to have you," she answered. He leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers. "So are we doing this? Really doing it?" She kissed him, slow and sure. We already are. Later that evening, after Bella had been bathed and tucked into bed with her frog watering can beside her, Michael and Noelle sat on the couch, a folder spread between them. Inside were sketches, permits, and outlines for the Foundation's first local project, a learning center with a garden roof and open-air classrooms. You designed this? He asked, running a finger along the notations. I had help, Noelle said. But the idea came from you. Remember when you said kids should learn outside sometimes? That they'd behave better if they had sunlight and dirt instead of concrete and fluorescent lights? He smiled. I was half joking. Well, I wasn't, she said. And now you're on the advisory board. He stared at her. I don't know anything about being on a board. You know more than any of them about what real families need, she said. That's the only qualification that matters here. He leaned back, overwhelmed and quiet for a moment. I used to think I'd never be part of something bigger than just making it through the week, he said. But now I come home and there's laughter. Paintings on the fridge. A woman who brings me coffee in bed and steals the covers. I do not steal them, she said. You absolutely do. She grinned. It's a small price to pay for hot cinnamon coffee. He draped an arm around her. You're not going to miss the skyline view and the penthouse? I traded it for morning cartoons and pancake batter in my hair. I think I upgraded. The next few months passed in a rhythm neither of them had ever known before, slow mornings marked by shared breakfasts, afternoons filled with meetings at the new center site, evenings spent sprawled on the floor with coloring books and construction paper. Noelle's foundation launched its first program in the fall, bringing in a dozen at-risk students from the local district. Michael started teaching hands-on building workshops, woodworking, design, even basic plumbing. Bella became a local celebrity in the neighborhood, known for waving at everyone and insisting on watering the sidewalk just in case the cement wanted to grow. One crisp December morning, Michael walked into the community center with Bella on his hip. Noelle was at the front of the room, speaking with a group of volunteers. She turned when she saw them, her face lighting up. I have something for you, Michael said, setting Bella down. Noelle arched a brow as he pulled a small, hand-carved box from his coat pocket. He opened it to reveal a delicate silver ring, not flashy, not oversized. Just honest. Beautiful and real. I know we already have the life, he said. But I want to give you the promise too. No contracts. No negotiations. Just this me, you, Bella. Forever. Will you marry me? Noelle blinked, startled. Here? Now? I didn't want to wait for a rooftop or a fancy dinner, he said. I wanted to do it where we started building something together. She looked down at the ring, then back at him. Yes, she whispered. Bella clapped, though it was unclear if it was for the ring or because someone had handed her a cookie. They didn't wait long. In early spring, beneath a budding apple tree in the garden they built together, Michael and Noelle said their vows. It wasn't a lavish affair. Just the three of them, a few close friends, and laughter carried on the wind. Noelle wore a pale yellow dress with buttons down the back. Michael wore his best shirt, and the same shoes she'd bought him for that charity gala. Bella picked wildflowers and handed them to guests like they were golden tickets. As the sun dipped low and the sky turned soft and amber, Noelle leaned into Michael's chest. Did you ever think this would be your life? She murmured. Not even in my wildest dreams, he said. But it's better than anything I ever imagined. They stayed that way, swaying gently to the soft hum of a violin someone had brought, Bella twirling nearby in a makeshift crown of daisies. And for the first time for both of them, it wasn't about the past or what they'd survived. It was about everything still growing. Everything still to come. And the love that, against all odds, had taken root and bloomed.